You're listening to Rise to Your Purpose with Brandie and Natalie, a personal development podcast for entrepreneurs with a mission. Here's your hosts, Brandie and Natalie. You're listening to episode 4 of Rise to Your Purpose. So many people continue to be impacted by the COVID-19 virus, and if we're not careful, we can create these stories that become unhealthy for us and our future. So for today's episode, we wanted to introduce you to a fellow female entrepreneur and small business owner. You will hear an interview between Brandie and Macie Hale, who is a life coach focused on mindset and deep inner work. So listen in for advice on how to lean in during this time and combat the mind drama that may be creeping in for you as an individual and a small business owner. Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for joining. I wanted to take some time today to introduce you to my friend Macie Hale. She is a fellow entrepreneur, and we actually know each other through a network marketing business that we were both in the past. So you guys all know I love entrepreneurs. I love specifically entrepreneurs that have a mission in helping small businesses thrive. So I'm excited for you guys to meet Macie. She's a part-time pediatric OT and a life coach. And if you don't know what OT stands for, it's occupational therapist. And so I'm excited for you to meet Macie and get to know her and her mission, and we'll also share how you can become involved as well. So thank you, Macie, so much for hopping on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how you got into life coaching.
Yeah. So let's see, where to even begin with that. I met you through relationship marketing, and that was, years ago. I think I joined our relationship marketing business back in 2014. And at that time, I was going through a whole lot that people didn't know from, the outside. I was in college still, trying to finish up my master's degree for occupational therapy. And along that journey, I was introduced to personal development and absolutely just fell in love with the way that it was changing me, and started to see how I could manage a lot of the hardship that I was facing behind closed doors, using those personal development tools. And so long story short, being that I was, a female entrepreneur and had this business and loved personal development, a friend of mine had reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you ever worked with a life coach?" And I didn't even know what a life coach was, what they did. And so I said no, and I wasn't interested because back then I was kind of too proud to admit that I needed help. I was still in that phase of I can handle everything, I don't need help with anything, even though that was not totally true. And so I was still reading self-help books. I read You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Such a good
and
book.
I love that book. And I got to the end of her book, and she said, whenever you feel like you've hit a wall, it's a good time to hire a life coach. And I was like, there it is again. Why is this coming up? And then probably about a week after that, the same friend that had tried to introduce me to the coach reached out to me again and was like, "Hey, my coach is putting together a free Facebook group. It's free to be in there. She does Facebook Lives. Would you be interested in just, seeing what it's about?" And at that point I was like, I guess, it can't hurt. So I was put into the group and met my coach that way, ended up loving the work that she was doing, hired her, and pretty much the rest is history. I mean, I worked with her probably about 2 years trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. You've probably watched this.
Yeah.
I went through a lot of businesses and a lot of business ideas, trying to find myself, trying to figure out what I really wanted. Lots of failure and a ton of just deep diving personal development and inner work. And that led me to realize that life coaching was something that I was being called to do. So
I love it. We have similar journeys into coaching, because I was like you, we were kind of talking about it. I remember I was like, I have a life coach too, and you're like, I'm working with a life coach, and I was like, so we both have been on this crazy personal development journey, I feel like, over the last 5 years of knowing each other. And I think it's so powerful that you said, I tried a bunch of different things and I failed. And I think for entrepreneurs, sometimes we don't know. We know we're called to the entrepreneur space. We know we have a purpose that we want to fulfill, but sometimes we're not quite sure what that is. And we have these different passions.
Yeah.
And so I think it's totally, if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out in this space, like try something. It's so much better just to try it and be like, this isn't for me, let's pivot, than to not try it and have that regret. So I admire you, Macie, for just like, I've watched your journey and you've, I wouldn't say you failed at any of them. You just discovered like a next level of who you wanted to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome that you at least put yourself out there to try and keep discovering, no, this was great for the season, but this isn't my ultimate journey, I guess, or goal. So
Yes.
I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
So we are in this whole COVID-19 craziness. And so since you are a life coach, I really wanted your opinion or advice for entrepreneurs as they're in this space, how they can pivot their mindset and manage some negative stories that may be coming up for them during this time. And if you have any like strategy that they can implement like right now, or, in the next couple of days that could just help them with the negative, I know we call it the mind drama that pops up.
Yes. So I experienced this even weeks ago, like going through being a pediatric occupational therapist. They hadn't set up telehealth for us. And the way that works in my career is you show up, you get paid. You don't show up, you don't get paid. There's no extra for us. It's just like you show up, you do that visit, you get paid. And, I'm still in the stages of building up my business. So while that does give me great income, it's not replacing that pediatric occupational therapy salary. So when this all went down, of course, my mind went to all of the drama, as Brandie said. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I felt myself going through this roller coaster of, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh, we're going to end up in the street, and the thing about it is we end up putting ourselves in this position where we feel like it's only happening to us. Whereas when you zoom out, you realize this is happening to a lot of people. But on top of that, from my mentors, which I think has been so refreshing to see as well, is that they don't stop their life just because there's a crisis, because every day in some way, we experience some sort of crisis. Something goes wrong for a lot of us at some point at any given time. And like you said, how you pivot during that time and the way that you choose to look at it is everything. And another thing that I've really found during this time period that's helped me as an entrepreneur is, and this is something that I coach on, is that a lot of times when we feel that negative emotion come up and we get in our negative stories, we judge it and we feel like, I shouldn't be thinking this way, I shouldn't be feeling this way, I shouldn't have the mind drama. And meanwhile, you're in it. So most people, I feel like, try to correct it before they actually lean into it. And the work that I really push my clients to do is lean in. When things feel really, really sour, lean in more and just be with that emotion. And instead of judging it and trying to make it go away and fixing it, the faster that you can just lean in and embrace it and surrender to it, the faster you get on the other side. Like, instead of swimming in that mind drama of it should be different, it should be different, it should be different, just lean into it and really ask, like, what are these emotions and what are they teaching me? So I use all of my negative emotion as a way to show me what could be stronger within myself, what mind or like what thoughts are coming up that maybe need some more work that I thought I had, did a good job with. And now all of a sudden it's coming up again. So my advice to entrepreneurs out there, if you're struggling, if you could feel guilt, like, how am I supposed to offer my services or whatever I do when the world is going through a crisis? The thing about it is that there are people out there that need your voice and need what you have to offer. And you have to, like, first make sure you're taken care of, make sure that you are mentally sound and that you're leaning in and moving through your emotion. And then you can be that platform that someone else needs.
I love that. So you said lean in, what are some practical techniques or strategies that somebody could go and be like, here's how I lean in? Like, can you go further into what does leaning in look like?
Yeah. So for me, the way that I teach this is I really ask my clients to sit with themselves. I call it no buffer. Like I would call myself the no buffer coach, because and buffering meaning distraction. So that's what we do a lot of times. Like what I'm seeing on social media a lot out of people is, I like to be busy. I like to be busy. I like to be busy. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why. Because when you're not being busy, all of a sudden your subconscious thoughts start to creep up. So people fill their time with distractions of, I'm going to scroll through social media. Maybe I want a snack, even though they're not really hungry. Maybe I should go do XYZ, watch, 8 hours of Netflix in a row. Like, people drown out what their subconscious is trying to tell them with buffering, with distraction, with busy tasks. And so a lot of people have a hard time following through with just lean into it, just sit without a phone, sit without a glass of wine, sit without a TV, sit without any noise. And can you be alone with yourself? And what I find is that for most people, 5 minutes alone with themselves feels like too much, but that's the work, because beneath that, what you allow to bubble up is everything that you can work on to get to the other side. It's a very powerful thing. So what I would say is, if you feel like you're resisting your emotion and that's keeping you in this place of a lot of anxiety and negativity, to just give yourself 5 minutes, sit down, have no distraction, and just see what comes up. And then I encourage my clients to journal. What came up for you? Don't judge it. Don't get all up in your head about it. Just let it out.
I love that. I think that is so important. And, speaking from not only an entrepreneur standpoint, but from like somebody who's gone through and is going through an infertility journey, like the last few months before we were in the adoption process, I was like so depressed, and just like I was, like you said, buffering. And that's just, we buffer in all areas of our lives. But once I actually sat with my grief and my emotions and like actually release them and let them come up and not feel shameful, not feel guilty about them, it was just so powerful for me. And so I want to encourage, like, from somebody who's gone through that, whether it's, emotions based on something going on in your life right now or within your business, like, it is so powerful to really just sit with yourself, let those emotions, those thoughts come forward, write them down, and figure out what is really honest and what's a lie. Because our brain does spin these crazy stories of, oh my gosh, like the world's coming to an end, like we're all gonna, we're all gonna be bankrupt or whatever, your mind's coming up with. Like, at the end of the day, it's all, yes, I don't want to like minimize what we're going through, but it will all work out. And one way or another, everything's working for your good. Yes. And I just feel like everything's happening for you, not happening to you. So there's so much opportunity in this time that we're in right now.
Yes.
So thank you so much for sharing that tip. I think that's really powerful for anybody, whether an entrepreneur listening or just somebody who's sitting at home and buffering, like, use this time to work through your drama, I guess.
Yeah, it's a perfect time.
What can you go into more about what your mission is with your coaching business?
Yeah. So what I really love to focus on with all of the women I work with is that inner work. Why are you avoiding yourself? Why are you having the mind drama? The very things that you want to flee from in life are your biggest teachers. And so what I encourage is a very safe place in my coaching to help bring that comfort and safety so women can like pull that up and out and heal it. Like, I would say my mission is to help women heal, because we do carry on generational traumas. And you think about like stories of how you were raised, and then your parents have stories about how they were raised, and it either shapes you to do the opposite of what they did, or you take bits and pieces of what you liked, but sometimes those things that you didn't like created trauma in your body. And it doesn't mean that it would be traumatic for every person that went through that same thing, but you can't judge who just, perceives it as trauma versus not. So those things get stuck. And as a result, it can make us sick over time, emotionally, mentally, physically. So my mission is to help women get to the root of what is bothering them, what they haven't looked at, and face it so that they can move on and do what they're meant to do. They can become their highest self.
Yes, I love that. And for those of you who are new to Macie, she has an amazing podcast called Becoming Your Highest Self, right?
Yeah.
I love your podcast. I listen to it. It's been hard for me to listen to it on maternity leave because it's normally like my drive time when I do my podcast. I'm like trying to figure out where I fit those personal development, drive time universities, I used to call it, into life now. So I have actually started doing Audible books while I'm feeding Elijah.
Yes.
But your podcast, so I would recommend listening to your Buffer podcast.
Yes, most popular episode.
There was an episode that you did about your like inner child emotion and your adult child emotion. I don't know if I'm saying it.
Yes, it's gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Like you're on the right path. I can't, mine has gone blank.
That for me was like so pivotal.
Emotional adulthood versus emotional childhood. That's what episode is.
Such a good episode because there is so much of our childhood beliefs that creep into our adult and how we react to things that I've honestly become more aware of. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful when you realize, why am I like throwing a tantrum in my brain over this situation that really, like, logically, if I'm in my adult higher self, like this really wouldn't be ruffling my feathers, but for whatever reason, it's coming up and I'm freaking out right now.
Yes.
It's caused me to take when those things pop up, it's really brought awareness to be like, okay, let's step back for a minute and really evaluate what is actually going on inside of me and where is this emotion coming from. Thankfully, I don't always people don't know I'm going through that, but in my body, I'm like, why did I just respond in my head? Or like, why did I just have this emotional reaction to that situation? Okay, so Macie, what is inspiring you right now?
Well, that's a good question. What is inspiring me right now? Honestly, this might sound not good because the world is going through crisis, but everything that we're going through right now is inspiring to me because I'm having to find the beauty in it in order to really maintain my mental health. I think for a lot of people, like finding gratitude, I was telling some clients of mine, like, can you imagine the vibration of gratitude we're going to feel when this is all over, when you can hug the people that you love, when you can go to the store and just know that toilet paper is available and you don't have to like fight anyone, to get what your needs are. And you don't have to feel as much fear. Like, I'm sure there's going to be some residual fear that people feel for a while, but I think that I wouldn't say COVID-19 is inspiring me, but what the way that the world is coming together and the way that we're just able to support support ourselves and other people in the situation that we're in and making the best of what we can is very inspirational to me.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that. Like, it's definitely inspired me to, I feel like, step up and be like, how can I show up more? What else can I do for the world? And I've seen a lot of people do that as well. So I would totally agree with you. Yeah, it's like the situation is inspiring, and I feel like that says a lot too. Like, when you're in a crisis or in, not a great situation, how you persevere through that says so much about you and your character. And so it's been really inspiring to see other entrepreneurs just step up and pivot, even though it is hard for them. And I just think that's inspiring me right now, seeing other people, how they're persevering and pivoting and coming through with gratitude and with a positive attitude despite what is going on. So I agree. How do you see God working through you in your business right now?
I definitely think that he's using me to communicate peace and calmness and reframing the way that we're looking at this, and I think first I had to just, like I said, surrender and sit with it and lean in, because I was probably like a lot of people, in that I was panicked and freaking out. What are we going to do? Is everything going to be okay? And when I finally surrendered, it was just like, everything will be okay. And I don't even, it was this peace and calm of like, I don't even know how it's going to be okay, but I just know that it is. And so now I can step up to the plate and use my talents that he gave me to be that peace and calm for anybody else that needs it.
I love that. so powerful. And I think that's so true. Like, he is in control of all of this. And, I just keep holding on to Jeremiah 29:11. He's working all things for our good. And, he has plans to prosper us, not to harm us. And so I just lean into him, lean into the work that we're doing. And I know at the end of the day, we're going to come out of it one way or another. So
it'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll all be okay. That's our mantra. It's all going to be okay.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining. Where can people find you? Instagram, Facebook, your podcast. Let people know how they can get involved with you.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Becoming Your Highest Self, and it's on various platforms, iTunes and Spotify being the main ones, but iHeartRadio, on and on. You just Stitcher, have to get on there and type it in, Becoming Your Highest Self with Macie Renee. Instagram, my Instagram handle is at Macie, and that's MACIE, Renee, RENAE_. And you can find me on Facebook, spelled the same way, Macie Renee. And then my website, macierenee.com. And on there, you'll find different ways that we can work together. You'll find my podcast is embedded there. I have free content, newsletter sign up. So people can check out my website and be directed to whatever they're needing.
Awesome. Yes, Macie is amazing. I'm going through her Rewired program right now. Love your podcast. So I'm really honored that you were able to do this interview with me and just share your mission, share your talents with the world. Before we wrap up, I have one final question. So being an entrepreneur and being a woman, self-love is so important. So I would love for you to tell us what self-love means to you and how do you incorporate that into your day-to-day life?
To me, self-love is knowing enough about yourself to know what you need and honoring that when you need it. That life gets so busy. And as women, we do take care of a lot of things and a lot of people, and we wear many hats, and we're trying to be everything for everybody else all of the time. But it sounds cliche, but you can't give that of what you do not have. And to me, self-love is figuring out what is it that brings me joy? What is it that makes me happy? Because when my cup is full, then I can pour into everyone else, a lot more. So I think self-love is just being able to recognize when you need something and knowing that you're worthy of that.
I love that. Yes, that's so true. I think we can't really pour into other people unless we fill up our own cup. So I'm 100% on board with that. So again, Macie, thank you so much for hopping on here with me and just sharing your awesomeness with my audience. Hopefully you guys found value in this and that you do listen to our podcast and reach out if you are in need of a life coach. And Macie's really great at just healing trauma, she will dive deep into you and pull out things that you probably don't even know that you have going on. But I encourage you to do that because we all want you guys to be your highest self and really live an abundant and victorious life. So please reach out to Macie if she resonates with you, because she's awesome to work with. So thank you again, Macie. I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. We'd love to hear from you. It makes us so happy to see you tuning into the show. So if you're on Instagram, let us know what your favorite part of the show was by taking a screenshot of the episode you tuned into and tag us at Live Victorious on your story. Let us know what your favorite quote or takeaway from the episode was so that we can continue to be inspired and keep creating more content like this. To learn more about Brandie and Natalie and get involved with our community of mission-driven entrepreneurs, join our Facebook group, Purpose Partners, Partnering Together in Faith and Business. Until next time, build a business that works for you and stay in alignment with your mission.